glad that we could have you here with us today singing that song as we end this series. How many of you say, yep, that's where I am right now. I just need to breathe. Just need to breathe. There's part of you that's like you just need to close your eyes, be where your feet are. Just breathe. This series that we're in, I'm Not Fine, How Are You? Okay, that's where the breathing part comes in. So if you've been with us for the past few weeks, and if not, welcome, and that's what we're talking about. That's why I said all that's a study in Lamentations. We've spent the last few weeks looking at things like anxiety, right? And yeah, breathing is probably pretty important if we're dealing with some type of anxiety. We've talked about things like pain and suffering and anger and worry, and today like things like questions and doubts. So we wrap this series up today. Who's ready for another look at Lamentations? Yes, there you have it, Ray. The people, they've spoken. The votes are in, fired up. They're excited. No, this will be great. We're gonna wrap this up today. This will be good. So this is the end of Lamentations. Lamentations is only 5 chapters long. So this is literally the last 4 verses of the book of Lamentations. Okay, here we go. You, Lord, you reign forever. Your throne, it endures from generation to generation. That's beautiful, right? So why do you always forget us? Why do you forsake us for so long? Restore us to yourself, Lord, that we may return. Renew our days as of old, right? This is the first place where the good old days, that's where it was born from right there. Unless you've utterly rejected us and are angry with us beyond measure. So our last 4 verses of the book, Lord, you reign forever. Where'd you go? Did you forget about me? Lord, restore us to you, unless we've just gone too far and we're beyond that point. The end. The end. No answer, no response, no resolution to the story. That's it. It ends right there. God doesn't answer those questions. Here's the thing. God doesn't just not answer those questions. God actually, if you've read through, been tracking through Lamentations, God doesn't answer at all in Lamentations. God doesn't speak at all in Lamentations. Go ahead to the next one, Ray. Here's what we have. Look, Lord, and consider. See, Lord. Look, Lord. Lord, look at them. Remember, Lord, look and see. Lord, restore us, Lord. And in every case, in every time, Lord, look, Lord, see, Lord, look at them, remember, restore. God never answers, right? Sometimes God is silent. Sometimes God is just silent. Now, to be sure, God is a God that speaks. Okay, I mean, opening pages of our, page 1, right? In the beginning, God created, and God said, "Let there be light," and God said, "Let the waters above be separated from the waters below." And God said, and God literally speaks His words like order into this chaotic world. Okay, God is speaking for sure. But then we come to the end of the Old Testament, and between the Old Testament and the New Testament, there's 400 years of silence. God doesn't speak. 400 years. And then I love how the New Testament kicks off and how John puts it. He says, in the beginning was the Word, right? The Word, the voice, the Word of God. The Word was with God and the Word was God, right? And we discover, of course, that this Word is Jesus. So God speaks most definitively in and through the person of Jesus. What better way to speak to us, to relate to us, to connect with us than for Jesus to come as one of us? God speaks, but sometimes God is silent. C.S. Lewis, great theologian in the 20th century, wrote dozens of books. This is one of them. It's called A Grief Observed. He wrote this about a year after the passing of his wife. This is what he says. When you are happy, you have no sense of needing him, talking about God, of course. But go to him when your need is desperate, when all other help is vain. And what do you find? a door slammed in your face, a sound of bolting, and then double bolting on the inside. And after that, silence. The longer you wait, the more emphatic the silence will become. Have you ever been in that place with God where the silence becomes deafening? Sometimes God is silent. And I started thinking, God, why is that? And I think one of the reasons, part of it is that, God's silence does give space does give room for our venting that we do, right? For us to cry out to God. And for him to give us space, for him to be silent and allow you to vent and to cry out to him is actually a good thing. I think in a sense, God almost, there's almost an honoring, an appreciation, like a dignity that he gives to your voice to vent and to cry out to him, and he remains silent, right? We've all been there with someone when we're wanting to speak and they just keep butting in and talking over us, and you feel undermined when that happens, right? So God doesn't do that, right? He gives that space, and so there's something maybe to appreciate there, right? The room to cry out to him. But I think another big part of this is simply the fact that God gives this silence at times because the answers that we're asking, the questions that we're asking, we can't handle those answers. Like, we are so limited in our understanding, our ability to comprehend the answers that God would give us. We're too finite for that. So a week ago, I go to the Grand Canyon. My wife and I, her folks, two of my kids, Ava and Zane, they go with us. They've never been to there it is. They've never been to the Grand Canyon. My wife and I have been there for a long time ago, and we don't want to be those parents. Like, you live in the Grand Canyon State, you never take your kid to the Grand Canyon, right? I mean, none of you are those people, are you? Okay, all right, just kidding. So we take them there, and we go to the Grand Canyon, and we go to the edge, and we look out, and here's what we see, is we just kind of look out in the Grand Canyon, like, that's it, okay? Courtesy of iPhone XR. I've got an old one. So there you have it. And I ask Ava and Zane, hey, what do you guys think? And they say, I mean, it looks fake, right? And I'm like, yeah, it kind of does. I mean, it looks like a picture. It actually looks kind of like how you're looking at it right now. It's just so massive, it looks kind of like a screen, like a big screen that you're looking at. So then I look down, because you're literally kind of at the edge, look straight down way at the bottom, and I see this little dot moving along the ground. And I say, hey, Zane, Ava, look at that. Do you see that person way down there? They're moving. They're like, oh, yeah, I see them, right? And then we look back up to this. And I mean, it doesn't totally do it, but you start to can put it in perspective a little bit more, right? Like, if that little dot way, way down there is a person, holy, how vast must this place actually be? Now, here's the thing. We're just, the Grand Canyon is just a piece, right, of Earth. So Earth is rotating, spinning around at 1,000 miles an hour. You feel that? It's a good thing you're sitting down. It's why we designed the worship house this way, is we're just going with it, with the spin. It keeps us moving. It just keeps us rotating. It's very organic and natural. The Earth is spinning 1,000 miles an hour, okay, around. But then the Earth is spinning around, like in our solar system, it's flying around the sun at 66,000 miles an hour. The Earth is flying around, rotating around our sun, which of course is the star in our solar system. Now, there's a number of other planets, like in our solar system. We've got 8, because Pluto got the boot a while ago. So 8 planets, and then a couple little tag-alongs. But 8 that are flying around. Earth is flying around 66,000. And our solar system is flying through the galaxy at 450 3,000 miles an hour, okay? Our solar, so us, 7 other planets, the sun, couple wannabe planets, flying 450,000 miles an hour. Now, I can tell you are not impressed, which is fine because I've got more. The solar system exists like in the Milky Way galaxy, right? So our solar system exists in the Milky Way galaxy. But we're not the only solar system. Look at that. 3,916 solar systems exist in our galaxy. That means that there's 3,915 other stars like our sun with planets, however many, flying around them, flying through the galaxy at 450,000 miles or whatever they're doing, whatever their speed is. I like to think that we're a little bit faster than the other solar systems, but alas. Okay, now, still not impressed? I've got more. Hit it up. The universe, okay? That's our galaxy. The Milky Way is our galaxy. There are billions of galaxies that exist in our universe. Billions of galaxies that exist in our universe. And Dr. Strange at Marvel taught us that there's multiverse, that there's not even one universe. There's multiverses, which real scientists talk about the same thing. Now, this is not for your entertainment pleasure. The point of this is reality, okay? These go to, look it up. Those realities, but you know what I say and what you say? We say, I want answers, God. Answer me. Tell me. Explain it to me. And I just wonder, is God's silence is a huge reason for it simply because there's just no possible way we could begin to fathom, to comprehend, to understand this God on that throne over and above all of that we just talked about. But I want answers, and I want certainties. I want to be sure, and I want explanations. This is exactly where Job got to in Job's story. So Job loses everything in his life. He's crying out to God. God is largely silent to him as well. But in chapter 38, and maybe if Lamentations went on to 38 chapters, the same thing would happen there. I don't know. It ends at chapter 5, awkwardly, mind you. Job goes on. Chapter 38, Job is questioning God, and here's God's response. Who is this that obscures my plans with words without knowledge? Brace yourself, Job, like a man, and I will question you, and you shall answer me. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundations? Tell me if you understand. And it just goes on and on and on with God helping Job understand that Job, maybe a primary reason that I am silent at times is because you are so limited in your ability to comprehend and understand the answers, even if I were to tell them to you. Sometimes God is just silent. But go with me here. What if? What if God said, okay, fine, big guy, the bottom of the Grand Canyon, you little dot, I'll answer you. And God starts giving us the answers to our questions, right? He starts rallying. God starts giving us the certainties that we want to have. God starts removing the doubts that fill our minds at times, right? God starts giving us that money back guarantee that we want to have. And I know you know what I'm talking about. God, I want a guarantee. You give me a guarantee on this, then we got something going here. Let's say if God were to do all of that, what would that do to your faith? Would you even need faith? Would faith be a thing? What would be the point of faith? What would be the point of it? If God just answered everything, gave us all the certainties, did it all. See, here's the thing that, look at C.S. Lewis, the final quote on this before we move on. C.S. Lewis continues in his book, and he says this: when I lay these questions before God, I get no answer, but rather a special sort of no answer. It's not the locked door, it's more like a silent, certainly not uncompassionate gaze, as though he shook his head, not in refusal, but waving the question like, peace, child, you don't understand. And that not understanding is what gives room for our faith. Here's what I believe. God's silence is part of the faith journey. Now, I'm not saying that you have to like that. I'm not saying that I always want that. I'm not saying that that's always easy. I'm just saying God's silence is part of our faith journey. I mean, the fact that we want certainty and we want all the risks removed, I mean, it's the very fact that the risks are real, right? It's the very fact that I don't have 100% certainty on the outcomes. It's the very fact that God doesn't give me the money back guarantee that I want. It's the very fact that God doesn't answer all the questions that I have. It's the very fact that I have doubts, right, that give opportunity for faith, that give meaning and purpose to faith. And this is what Lamentations, go and put that slide back up. This is what Lamentations teaches. Look at the tension. You, Lord, reign forever. Your throne, it endures from generation to generation. There's the faith journey. And then, why do you always forget us? Right? There's the question. There's the tension. There's the doubt, the struggle, God, why are you silent? God, answer my questions. In that tension, that place is where faith is formed, is where faith finds opportunity and meaning. So when my dad taught me how to ride a bike, he taught me the same way I taught my kids, probably the same way a lot of you guys were taught, okay, the way that you taught your kids. So there's a very specific way that you teach a kid to ride a bike. If you're unaware, here you go. So first of all, I mean, the training wheels, of course, but forget that. When the time comes to take the training wheels off, that's what we're talking about. You pop those off, I'm on my bike, and by the way, I grew up in Chicago, south suburb called Oak Lawn. There, like we had a long driveway, and at the end of the driveway, there was an actual mailbox on a pole stuck in the ground. Like you'd open the door, they'd put the mail in, a little red flag if you wanted your mail to go. Now, it's all locked up. I don't even know how the mailman gets it in there because I'm the one with the key, whatever. But there you go. I don't know. It's a big thing. Mailbox there. I'm at the driveway, and training wheels come off. My dad says, okay, here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna get on the bike, and I'm gonna stand to the side of you, and I'm gonna put my hands like on your shoulders like this, and I'm gonna go with you, right? Any of you do this? Parents, thank you, you did. Okay, so I'm gonna go with you, right? And they kind of run along, and then they kind of let go a little bit. And it's like when I start leaning this way on the bike, right? Like, boop, his hand pushes me back up this way, right? Then I'm riding, then if I start leaning this way, like, oh, he pushes me back up. Because the idea is he's trying to get me to feel, right, that tension, that balance of keeping the up on two wheels. Great. So we're going, so we do that a couple times. Really, it's just depending on how in of shape or out of shape you are as a mom or a dad, depends on how long this part of the exercise goes, okay, with you and your kid. So we're moving along, and okay, great. I'm tired. You're ready for phase two. Okay. So then phase two. Okay, what's phase two, Dad? So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna step behind you, and I'm gonna hold your seat to keep giving you that balance. Now, this is a very strategic move. Why? Because as a parent, for you to grab that, you step back to grab that seat. It takes you out of the peripheral vision of your kid. Right? So when my dad's here with the hand on the shoulders, I can see him. When he goes back here, I can't see him anymore. And when he moves his hand to the seat, I also can't feel him anymore, right? Because it's on the seat. And not being able to see him and not being able to feel him is critical for what's about to come next. So there I am. I'm on the bike. My dad's got me. Okay, let's go. Maybe we do it a couple times. I don't know. But then this point comes where he's here and I'm pedaling and he lets go, right? You've done this. I did this. Let's go. And he stops. But I don't know. I'm just, woo, yeah, Dad, you're doing great, Dad. Thanks, man. And the idea is like you don't want your kid to know because if they know you're gone, they'll panic and instantly write down the ground. Out of panic and nothing else. So you don't want your kid to know. You want them to, and I'm just going, and then all of a sudden I start getting the, and I'm doing this on the bike, and it's leaning, and for whatever reason, like my bike has brakes. I have no idea about, it's gone. I don't know that brakes exist. I don't know how to use brakes. Brakes mean nothing to me in the moment. And I go right into the mailbox, take the mailbox down over the handlebars, all over the ground. Okay. Now, hopefully you had a better experience. But I look back, right? And where's my dad? My dad's back there where he let go of me, right? My dad's back here. Now, did my dad stop loving me? Well, no, of course not. Did he want me to? Well, no, he didn't want me to go into the mailbox. Obviously, he had to fix it, not me. He didn't want me to go into the mailbox. Did he stop loving me? Was he no longer for me because he let go and let me ride? No. What does he know? He knows this is part of the process of me learning to ride a bike. This is part of the journey of me getting to the place where I'm just kind of riding. Part of that journey is him letting go of that seat. And he still sees me. He still hears me. He still loves me. He's still for me. But there is this space and silence that has grown between us. God's silence is part of our faith journey. When Jesus was on the cross at the lowest, hardest time of his life, right, dying on the cross, and he cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me? God the Father responds back with nothing, right? Silence. We don't read any answer. He's not given an answer. There's no answer. There's just a question and then silence. Did it mean that God the Father didn't care about the Son in that moment? No, of course not. He stopped loving him? No, of course not. But there was a time of silence over the next few days, right? And then the Father speaks again. Here's the thing. Here's the question that I think this really comes down to is, will you and I, in these times of silence and even knowing that it's part of our faith journey, will we remain faithful in and through the silence? I know people, maybe you do, they have deconstructed their faith to the point of crumbling it and walking away from it and saying, I'm done with it because of things like silence. But I don't think it has to be that way. Will we remain faithful in and through the silence? This is what Lamentations does, by the way, right? God never answers like we've already talked about. God's silent like we've already said. But in Lamentations, it keeps saying, look, Lord, see, Lord, remember, Lord, don't forget me, Lord. It just keeps addressing the silence head on and keeps choosing it. For us to remain faithful is about us continuing to choose God over and over and over in and through the silence. We just keep choosing it. Makes me think of during COVID when certain people lost their sense of taste. They couldn't taste anything. Some people for a week or 10 days. Some people for a few months. Any of you? Few months, monthers? Yeah, that's tragic. That's a real tragedy. The taste of the food, right? It's gone. Right? The life, it's as if the food went silent, right? You're like, man, you got nothing for me. You're just a full bottle of barbecue. It doesn't matter. Nothing. It's silent. Hot sauce, silent. Doesn't matter. But I don't know one person that stopped eating food and choosing it in and through the lack of being able to taste it. And then praise God, hallelujah, right? The time comes where your taste buds come back and you can start to just enjoy and savor it once again. Hebrews is this chapter that is just, it's full, it's literally known as the Hall of Faith chapter. All these men and women that are mentioned for their incredible faith. And it starts out like this in Hebrews 11:1. Before it gives any of the examples, it says, now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. Now, the good thing about that is it says, hey, real faith does have this conviction, this assurance of what you're expecting but hasn't happened yet, okay? But does that mean that all the questions are answered? Does that mean that all the tensions are removed? Does that mean that you never have any doubts? Does that mean that you have absolute certainty of what the outcome will be? Does that mean that you have a guarantee? No, it doesn't mean any of that. How do I know that? Read Hebrews 11. Read the people. Read what happens with every single one of them over and over. They are faithful men and women, ultimately because, yes, they keep choosing God in and through all their stuff, but there's a lot of stuff. None of them have perfect faith, but take like Abraham and Sarah that are mentioned, right? God says, you will have a child. Right? And actually, your children will be as numerous as the stars in the sky. Sarah laughs at God because she's so old. Okay? Not sure that's exactly the tactic that you want to take. She laughs at God. Like, how could this be possible? And as time goes by and time goes by, it doesn't happen. To the point to where Sarah, like full on says, Abraham, go sleep with my slave girl and have a child with her, because the one that God said I don't know where he went. I don't know what he's doing. It hasn't happened. He said it and then he's gone silent for years. And eventually God did give them their child. Jacob is one who just is wrestling with God. Talk about being in a place of tension. Spends a night wrestling with God because of the tension surrounding his faith and faithfulness and following God. Moses is great. He's the one that, of course, that God called to go free the people out of slavery when they were in Egypt, which, by the way, when Israel was slaves in Egypt, they were slaves there for 430 years, crying out to God, 430 years, and then God says, I hear your cries, and I'm going to come free you. 430 years of silence, and then God hears, and God responds, and God comes to Moses and says, Moses, hey, I want you to go. And Moses is like, well, who am I that I could do that? And God tells him who he is. And then Moses is like, well, who are you? God tells him who he is. And Moses is like, well, what if they don't believe me? What if I go there and they don't listen to me? They don't believe anything I say. And God's like, okay, he answers that, deals with that one, right? And then Moses is like, yeah, I don't think I'm your guy. So, you just talk about, it's not that they didn't have doubts or questions about how any of this was going to work. It wasn't that the risks weren't real. It was just that all of that is what gives meaningfulness to faith. And the question is, will we be faithful in and through those silence times, in those doubtful times, in those times of tension, in those times of uncertainties? Will we remain faithful? And I love how Hebrews ends. And you have all chapter 11, all these men and women mentioned for incredible acts of faith. And then it says this, here's the deal. Fix your eyes on Jesus, right? The pioneer and perfecter of faith. That is the beginning and the end of your faith is Jesus. In other words, what Hebrews is saying is like they didn't have perfect faith, and they didn't get all their questions answered either. And they didn't have all their doubts removed, and they didn't have 100% certainty on what the outcome was gonna be. But they remained faithful in and through the times of silence and all of that, because they stayed fixed on the object of their faith, right? They kept choosing God. The only way you keep choosing God in and through the silence is if ultimately you're fixated on him, right? I mean, all the questions and all the doubts and all the things can be happening, but in and through all of that, you're saying, I'm focused on the object of my faith. I'm focused on you, God. I choose you again and again and again. And while we may fall along the way, we too are faithful people in and through because we keep choosing God in and through all of it. And you know what? One day, 400 years of silence, and then God speaks again. One day, 430 years of crying out, we're slaves here, God, do you hear me? And God speaks again. One day, Jesus rises from the grave, and God speaks again. And what I believe is that when we are faithful and we stay focused on this object of our faith, that God has not forgotten you. God is with you. He is for you. He loves you. He sees you. He hears you. And he will speak again. He will speak again. Right now is a time of him just letting go of the seat and letting you ride for a little bit as part of your faith journey. Will you stand with me? And I just want to pray, not just as we close today, but as we close this whole series that we've been looking at over the last few weeks. God, we confess, we absolutely do not understand everything about you. Maybe we think we do, maybe we think we could handle it, but you are far beyond what we can comprehend. And we thank you and we worship you this morning because you do sit on a throne in the heavens, over and above everything, ruling and reigning. And so we praise you for that. And while we sit here with all of our stuff and our questions and our doubts and our uncertainties, or whatever else it is, as we sit here for some people in a time of silence, wondering, God, did you forget about me? God, would you just remind people in a special way that you see them, that you know us, that you hear us, that you have not left us. You are present with us always to the end of the age. God, will we find comfort in those words? Will we find comfort in one another? And God, would you speak again soon to each person here? I pray in your name.